Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Welcome everyone to episode 1.4 in our first series, where we're defining, assessing and visioning your coaching journey, the very first phase of your happiness coaching journey with us. Last week we started looking at point B, the goal of your coaching, and looked at the beginning of creating a robust view of your happiness 10 out of 10, your future vision, a definition that ensures it's worth your while pursuing. I do hope that listening to 10 minutes of that song, Pink Fluffy Unicorns Dancing on Rainbows, didn't give you an earworm that's still with you a week later. This week, we'll continue with the visioning process and we'll add to the happiness paradox wisdom concept by considering the hedonic treadmill and the concept of 50-50 and what these can bring to your future vision of happy and successful at work. This week, we'll use the same future vision worksheet that we used last week. You'll be able to build onto last week's work and then complete your future vision with the two wisdom concepts from today's session. If you don't already have it, please download it from our website, Happiness-Matters.coach/free. Also, thank you to all of you who have connected with us via our website, the Facebook group Happiness-Matters.coach, and on direct message and Facebook. It has been a pleasure for me to work through some of your future vision concerns this week. I want to let you know before we start that I've opened up some additional coaching sessions in my calendar if you want to work with me in a 6-week or 6-month coaching program designed especially for you and your future vision. You'll find all this on the website by clicking through on the yellow button. Last week, we spent time considering the happiness paradox. We explored how pursuing happiness from the pleasure perspective doesn't actually get us any closer, and that we must have a sideways definition for our happiness journey. We likened this to white light and rainbows, and I gave you an earworm for the week for all your efforts. I had a query from one of my clients in beautiful Namibia about earworms and what on earth I was talking about. So, quick squirrel moment. An earworm is not actually a worm in your ear, although it is in the SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon. It's really just a snippet of a song that gets stuck in your mind and you keep on singing it. Like the song Pink Fluffy Unicorns Dancing on Rainbows. It's called Stuck Song Syndrome. And yes, it absolutely has been researched. Apparently, the best way to get rid of an earworm is to chew gum or put your brain to work on a puzzle like Sudoku or an anagram. If you didn't get to listen to last week's episode and you're feeling a bit lost with all this talk of earworms and rainbows and paradoxes, you can always catch up with the coaching work we did later. For now, just download the Future Vision free worksheet and jump in with us. I want to share some further insights into our next two happiness wisdom concepts as they relate to your happiness at work, so you can apply it to creating your future vision, your goal of coaching. The hedonic treadmill is a concept studied by positive psychology researchers exploring two interesting things about us humans and our happiness journeys. That of happiness adaptation and happiness set points. I just want to stop here to say, I'm always aware that we work with clients from across the world. Many of you do not speak English as a first language, so I do like to ensure that everyone understands what I'm talking about. English is full of strange words, idioms, and incomprehensible sayings. Let's start with the hedonic treadmill. Hedonism is a word that describes short-term happiness, the attainment of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Remember Epicurus from episode 1.1 and the Sanskrit word of prayer. Treadmill is a word that originated in ancient Rome to describe a crane for manipulating heavy objects. Now we think of it mostly as an exercise machine for running or walking on in one place, mostly seen in gyms. It also used to refer to punishment devices for people sentenced to hard labor in prison, which in my view is not that far off from today's gym machines. So the hedonic treadmill theory compares the pursuit of happiness to a person on a treadmill who has to keep walking just to stay in the same place. In other words, you can keep chasing pleasure and avoiding pain, but the actual pursuit might just find you staying in the same place, working hard to move forward, but never actually getting there. Similar, if you think about it, to the meanings behind the terms rat race or hamster on a treadmill. It's all about endlessly chasing something unobtainable, but always staying in the same place. The hedonic treadmill is also referred to as hedonic adaptation, which explores the idea of the same place in more detail. Researchers have observed the tendency of humans to quickly return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. For example, a lot of research has gone into understanding why most lottery winners don't end up happier in the long run. In the short term, yes, probably because they've gone on a shopping spree. But in the long run, they mostly return to the same level of happiness they were before the huge win. Another focus of research has been on understanding what happens to our long-term happiness if we get a salary increase. It's very much the same as what happens to those who win the lottery. We are happier in the immediate short term, but in the long term we find ourselves returning to the same level of happiness we had before the increase. You might even have noticed this happening for you at work. You get that job you've been wanting for years, but 2 or 3 months into your new role, you're not any happier, and the same things are still bothering you. Or you get recognized for a piece of work you've done, but the happy feeling soon fades and you forget about it pretty soon. So this idea is called the happiness setpoint. The idea that we return to the same level of happiness no matter what happens to us. We'll always just go back to where we were before, a bit like having a happiness thermostat inside us. American psychologist Sonja Lyubomirsky holds the belief from her research that about 50% of our happiness is set genetically. 10% is determined from life circumstances and situation, and 40% is up to us to create. This is her 50-40-10 formula of happiness. Now, there are many challenges to this comfortable view of happiness. One area of challenge comes from what we're learning today in genetic research. For example, how we view personality traits. Do we see them as fixed traits or traits that are shaped by genes interacting together, something called emergenesis? Then there's traits that depend on genes being switched on or off by our circumstances and the way we live our lives. And this means that nothing is predetermined 100%. A very complex field of current research, but very exciting. Other challenges come from studies into long-term happiness. The German Socio-Economic Panel Survey is a collection of statistics that represents the largest and longest-standing series of observations on happiness in the world. According to this survey, which has been running since 1984, the trait most strongly associated with long-term increases in life satisfaction is a persistent commitment to pursuing altruistic goals. That is, the more we focus on compassionate action, on helping others, the happier we seem to become in the long run. This is a sustainable increase in happiness, a rise in our set point. There is much research going on today on what short-term and long-term changes we can make to our happiness set point. I've really only touched on a few today. But the prevailing view on the happiness formula is that while we may have a behavioral disposition to be a particular way, and while we may have a genetic predisposition of how happy we might be able to become, it doesn't mean we will be. It doesn't mean the die is cast. It doesn't mean the limit is set on what happiness you can create for yourself. Now, how is this all relevant to our happiness journey and our future vision coaching that we're doing right now? Firstly, we need to ensure that your 10 out of 10 happiness goals are not putting you on an endless treadmill of pursuit and dissatisfaction. So let's check this. Look at your list. What do you have on your future vision that might put you on the hedonic treadmill? Are you staying in a job you really don't like just because you've been there long enough to get an automatic promotion and you're thinking, after this promotion, then I'll be happy at work? Or you could be thinking, if the company would just install a new coffee machine, then I'll be happy at work. Okay, coffee might be a bad example to distinguish between hedonistic pleasure and longer-term happiness. For me, I love my 1 cup of special coffee at our fish pond every morning. So much so, it's become an essential ingredient of my everyday happiness. A real happiness ritual. So if that got taken away, I might well say I'm not happy at work. And without my coffee, I might well not be successful. So yes, we do all need some short-term hedonistic pleasures. Our brain is actually wired for them, as we'll explore in Series 2. But it's essential that we're not dependent on them for our long-term happiness and success. No matter how bad the coffee is at your job. Secondly, we need to ensure that your 10 out of 10 happiness goals are those less affected by hedonic adaptation and will shift our happiness set points upwards. So again, let's check this. What do you have on your future vision list that will be less affected by these concepts? Are you focused on your tasks and how much enjoyment you're getting from being absorbed in them in the moment? What we call flow in positive psychology. Do you find the work you're doing today meaningful to you? Do you manage to connect to purpose in your work regularly? So we've now considered the hedonic treadmill and its related concepts and how it can help us shape our future vision, our point B in coaching, and our 10 out of 10 happiness rung on the ladder. I want to share another wisdom concept that I think you'll find intriguing and perhaps even a little uncomfortable. It's around the idea of life is 50-50. Listeners in Africa might be thinking of 50-50, the English Afrikaans TV program that's been running since 1987, one of the longest-running environmental programs on air in the world. The program is about wildlife, conservation, and environmental subjects with a strong focus on the 50-50 balance between humans and nature. Today I'm referring to the concept of life as 50-50. Life is half good and half bad, half negative and half positive, half happy and half unhappy. Do you remember in episode 1.2, we talked about the snakes and ladders game of our life, the ups and downs, and we talked about the duality inherent in our life. Today we're expanding this idea and bringing it to your future visioning work. Bringing it into this forward-looking process is really going to help us in your coaching, especially when we get to our next step of considering all the obstacles in the way of your happiness and success at work. To help us get to grips with the concept of life as 50-50, we're going to look at some wisdom from ancient Chinese philosophy and from Buddhism. Yin and Yang. How many of you can immediately picture the Chinese symbol for yin and yang? This black and white circle has become familiar across the world as a way to represent the 50-50 concept of dualism, of opposites in our world, of dark bright, black white, negative positive. The principle, which originated as far back as 3 BC, is that all things exist as inseparable and contradictory opposites. So female-male, dark-light, old-young, winter-summer, disorder, order. Do you get the picture? They cannot exist without each other. So these two opposites, yin and yang, attract and complement each other, the wavy lines in the symbol. Each side has at its core an element of the other, the little dots in the symbol. Neither one is superior to the other, and both make up the whole, the complete circle in the symbol. Copenhagen Zoo built their new panda enclosure in the yin-yang shape for the bears arriving from China last year. The idea was to mimic the unique solitary nature of the male and female pandas and their reproductive habits in a physical layout. It looks like a special place to visit to contemplate the peace of pandas, the concept of 50-50 yin and yang, and happiness matters. Pema Chodron is an American Tibetan Buddhist who can bring us further insight into this topic from another perspective, particularly useful in our coaching, that of 50-50 in our emotional life. Early on in her journey into Buddhism, Pema was deeply moved by an article by her own teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, Buddhist meditation master. In working with negativity, he discusses how there is nothing wrong with negativity and that it can actually be a powerful creative energy. So negativity and negative emotions are not something we should avoid or run from, but rather harness or master for our own growth and happiness. Pema likens this idea to being like holding a bull by the horns and staring it in the eyes while having to sneeze the entire time. She says, feelings like disappointment, embarrassment, irritation, resentment, anger, jealousy, and fear, instead of being bad news, are actually very clear moments that teach us where it is that we're holding back. They teach us to perk up and lean in when we feel we'd rather collapse and back away. They're like messengers that show us with terrifying clarity exactly where we're stuck. This very moment is the perfect teacher, and lucky for us, it's with us wherever we are. In other words, we can allow negative emotion to exist in our lives, knowing it's an essential part, that it's the 50-50 balance in play. It's the contrast of positive and negative emotions, the snakes and ladders of our lives. If you take Pema's view, the Buddhist view, negativity is even an asset to us. If you want to listen to Pema talking about happiness, there's an audio series called True Happiness you can download from Amazon. I'll put the link into the show notes for you. Life is 50-50 is a powerful wisdom concept when we apply it to our coaching goals and what we are choosing to make the goal of our coaching and the happiness we aspire to. How can you use this concept in understanding the balance of happiness and unhappiness, the balance of successful and unsuccessful in your life? What does this all mean to you? These are big coaching questions that we will explore all the way through our coaching journey, but please start considering them as we start, particularly now as you reach for your dreams and finalize your future vision. Are you visioning happy and successful at work 100% of the time? Are you dreaming of a work life that is constantly happy and blissful? What might be an acceptable 50% unhappy at work? What is a good balance of feeling in your life, even at the top of the 10 out of 10 ladder? Is it 50-50? What is the yin and yang of your happiness at work? What insights do you have on 50-50 after thinking about the Hedonic Treadmill, Hedonic Adaptation, and the Happiness Setpoint? I hope you'll consider the 3 happiness wisdom concepts we've looked at this week and last week, especially as you continue to brainstorm and vision your future. It certainly will ensure you're not defining a coaching goal, point B, that is an elusive dream of happiness, one of rainbows, little men, unicorns, and pots of gold. Our last 2 episodes have been quite complex, with some big questions to consider, haven't they? But truly, choosing our coaching goals, our point B in coaching, is no small thing, and we should take the time to take it seriously. We don't want to waste our time on this happiness coaching journey, do we? And we don't want to spend this time together on something that's not going to make a difference to your life. This is why we spent the last 2 sessions working together on visioning and brainstorming your no matter what, and making sure it's a robust future vision that you can take forward with you into your happy and successful at work. I've had fun this week, sharing some of my own learnings in how to create a robust vision of my own and my clients' happiness. Don't forget to download your freebie and join us in our Facebook group, Happiness-Matters.coach. I'm looking forward to the next step in our journey, where we're going to take your future vision into a discussion about the actual process of traveling from point A to point B, looking particularly at what's in your way of happy at work no matter what. Where are you stuck? I'm so looking forward to it. Bye for now from the beautiful country of Namibia, where I'm on a consulting assignment.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.